Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast. My name is Chris Berry, and I am going to be your host for today. Joining us, we have Michael Devous Jr. Michael, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing well. It is now finally 70 degrees in Colorado. So that is something I have been waiting for since about last September.
Yeah, that is true. I literally had it because I recently, end of last year, moved to Salt Lake City. And it was like, okay, cold. And then it got hot. I'm like, yes. Fuck. And I remember yesterday I took a meeting outside. I'm like, look, I'm gonna keep my camera off because I'm outside. I don't have a shirt on. I'm just enjoying the sun because I'm pale as can be. So
Yeah, as a Southern boy and from California too, I love the warmth and the sunshine. And it was sort of one of those things that I was like, please come back.
Yeah, exactly. That is true. So I agree to the sentiment. So, okay. Before we dive into your business, specifics of it, can you give everyone that's either listening or watching just an understanding of what you do?
Yes. Well, Michael Devous Jr., I run and own Devous Media Holdings, which is now sort of an umbrella for my personal and professional development services. And that includes Speaking Unleashed, which is my motivational speaking keynotes and presentations, MCs, and hosting. Authenticity Unleashed, which is the coaching and workshops side of it, where I focus on performance coaching, authenticity, brand narrative, story selling, and storytelling. Voices Unleashed, which is the talent agency for speakers. And then Community Unleashed, which is the Ascend Hub online community for aspiring entrepreneurs, basically providing them with resources, community, content programming, that kind of stuff.
Amazing. And what made you get into this space specifically? I know that obviously there's a lot of different aspects that I'm sure have kind of split it off and then created
life.
Way, but like the very beginning, what made you get into this?
Well, okay, it is life. I left corporate in 2022. I just got off of launching a broadcast TV network out of Dallas, which was very unexpected. It was a COVID pivot, which most of us did, right? And it just wasn't a great fit. It really wasn't. I wasn't happy. I was really what I call I was a slave, giving up my time, attention, and my talents. And it just wasn't winning for me. And I wanted something different. I had an opportunity to take a break. My father had a ranch in New Mexico. He had retired early, of course, because of COVID. And went to go help him on the ranch for a little bit. And I had an opportunity to reinvent and pivot, which I've done many times in my life. And it was through the exploration of what that looked like. Why had I pivoted so many times? How had I pivoted so many times? And they were almost always in the face of some major tragedy or situation. And people had said that I was fearless and I was resilient and I've always bounced back and I always landed on my feet. And so I started looking at how and why was I doing this. I will say one thing, when you tell the universe that you want to do, have, or become something greater than you are today, it will offer you all the opportunities to overcome obstacles and take on that challenge. And I think when you do that, you're always inviting an opportunity to change. And one of the things that I've noticed is that most of us, when we run into obstacles, try to figure out a way to get around these obstacles, try to figure out how to solve the problem. One of the things I always did was just change me. So the next version of me wouldn't have that challenge in front of him. And I didn't know this was a skill set. I didn't realize it was something that I could offer or pass on to other people. There's meaningful ways of dealing with and problem solving. So I put together a program called Making Fear Your Friend, the 4 F's of Making Fear Your Friend, which is feel, foster, flip, and free. And out of that, I just started working that program and I started working that concept and that idea into the Fearless Rope podcast, Fearless Thinking podcast, and my coaching and workshops. And I don't know, I really enjoy it because I think what's interesting is that I get to share pieces of my life and my journey every time. And I get to touch with the authenticity that's in other people by being the one that's vulnerable, by sharing those parts of me that were some of the darkest spaces that I ended up pivoting from. It allows them to be the real them, for a minute and not feel like they're alone in that experience. And I think that's it's very meaningful.
For sure. Absolutely. It's, as you mentioned, it's something that seemed not necessarily insignificant to you, but not as special. Like, oh, this is just me. This is just what I do. But we come to realize that so many people don't think that same way, don't act that same way.
Exactly.
Now, transformational, just this thought process that actions can be.
That's 100%. I thought, well, doesn't everybody handle, not everybody, but I mean, doesn't a lot of
A
people,
good majority.
Yeah, I would have thought a good majority of people just do this. And it was in one of the first times I joined a speaking coaching group or whatever. And I was sharing my journey and they were like, oh my God, you got to share this. And I'm like, why? It's not significant or unique, is it? And they're like, oh, yes, it is. And so I was getting a lot of feedback from other people that my particular type of journey and all of the moments that I had to go through, which ended up, and this is one of the things, somebody always says, would you change anything about your life? And I always say, I could not possibly, because, and that includes the bad stuff, because it shaped who I was. And in fact, one of the things I had said when I was 14 was, I, as a human, refuse to allow fear and these tragedies to define who I am as a person. I will never allow that. And I spent 40 years not allowing it, and came to the realization that it ultimately shaped my life out of spite, And so I thought that was fascinating, that even if we succumb to it, become a victim, it shapes our life. And even if we fight against it, it becomes the very enemy we spend all of our time strengthening ourselves, building our resilience against, and striking ourselves against that rock so many times that by the time you're big and strong and capable, you're like, well, it's because I actually did let it shape my life. And so I think in putting that to work for others and making it valuable to others was the next logical step for me.
Yeah, understood. And so you transitioned into this, you started doing that. You had, I don't know if epiphany is the best word to put it, but like these people started saying, no, like you have a lot more. From this entire time of you going through and helping people with this, what would you say have been some of the highlights / favorite parts of the business? And what would you say have been some of the biggest challenges?
Oh, okay. Well, the highlights are the people. The highlights are watching the ahas that they get. The highlights are watching them smile when they realize that what they're facing isn't the beast they thought it was, isn't the you know what I'm saying? And they realize that they can convert their fear of something, into a tool and give it a role and a purpose in their life. Because fear is never going to go anywhere, right? It's not going to leave you. It's going to be with you till the day you die, literally. It'll be the last thing you think of right before you close your eyes, because you're like, I'm afraid to go. And I think that if we can learn to have a relationship with it, an honest and open, transparent one, then it shifts it from becoming that thing that pops up and terrifies you, and becomes that thing that is an assistant, a guide, a signpost on the road. And when you see their eyes open up and realize that they no longer have to have that challenge, that's pretty cool to see. The other thing is, the most difficult part is being an entrepreneur. I mean, when I started at 52, and I have a pretty broad career in multimedia broadcast and media production and event production, marketing, PR, you name it. I thought, well, I can do this. Shouldn't be too terribly difficult. I've got all the savvy tech, whatever I need to run a business.
Mm-mm.
There's so many hats you have to wear. It's not that you can't do them. It's that you can't do them well all the time, every single day. And you can't wear them all at the same time. The bifurcation of our entire minds and thinking process, when I have to put on the tech hat in order to problem solve a technology issue versus a finance issue versus a sales issue versus a client lead generation problem, or you and I were talking about automations and workflows. Like, it's that splitting off of those energies and that attention that becomes the problem. And then you're not as efficient as you thought you would be. You're not as quick and good at it as you thought you would be. And you spend a lot more time doing things that will make you happy.
For sure. Well, I mean, so many coaches get into the business because they love coaching, but then they don't realize, okay, well, I got to craft this all together. And then I got to go ahead and I got to market it. And then I got to go ahead and sell. And then then I got to do my treasury and taxes and accounting. Like, there's all these different little things that sometimes, like, oh my goodness, like, it's overwhelming for so many coaches, because that's not why they got into the business and everything.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to go ahead and ask, because as you mentioned, not only the fact of what they got into business for, but then part number two of we can maybe, the hard part is number one, there's a lot of aspects that we maybe aren't familiar with. But then number two, we only have so much time. We can only do so much at once. And so that's the hard part. And one thing where a mix of not their favorite thing to do and people find themselves not having time trying to do other stuff, a lot of coaches is the marketing piece, right? Generally, it's getting themselves in front of people. Over your time of having all of this, what have been some of the ways that you've been using to generate leads for your business?
Well, it's interesting that you say it because we are in an unprecedented time when you can get in front of more people than was ever possible before.
Yeah.
And yet, are we all still struggling? Yes. Like, this is what shocks me with the ease of automation, with what number of eyeballs we could potentially get in front of and all the different platforms that we have. Why are we still struggling to get that lead, get that sale, get in front of people? And I find it interesting because it says something more about us as a culture and a society, I think, in terms of what we expect and what we know to be true about how we function and operate. And sometimes the old ways are the best ways. They really are. It's about meeting individuals. One of the things that makes coaches great is when you sit down and talk with one.
Mm-hmm.
They make you feel good. You feel heard and you feel seen and comforted and understood. They have something to offer you. Well, you don't get that in a post. You don't get that in an ad. It doesn't really resonate and it doesn't convey, it doesn't come across. And so some of the old school methods of generally just meeting people, I find getting on masterminds, getting on other types of group settings, where they can hear you comment about things or offer a nice piece of advice to somebody is such a great way to be seen and be heard that you couldn't pay for. You know what I mean? You could certainly create that YouTube video, but how many people can you get it in front of? Whereas with these kind of larger group settings, you have the chance to be seen and to be heard, and then hopefully people will recognize that value.
For sure. Absolutely. And that's where I think that there's absolutely automations and things that make it much easier. But what it really comes down to is the authenticity and just having those conversations, people feeling that, this guy actually cares for me and everything. And one of my favorite quotes, because obviously right now is getting such a busy time in the world in general, especially in the coaching space. There's also so much distrust, both in the world and in the coaching space. And the quote that really stuck in my head is, the future of marketing is the demonstration of competency. So how can you go ahead and show to people that you care, that you're confident, that you can do all these different things? So I definitely agree. Okay. And so let's say you've got in front of these conversations, and also where are you primarily going to have these conversations with people? What have been some mediums that you've been employing?
LinkedIn, I think, is one of the best platforms for us. I think for coaches, that's where the executives and business people are that typically need the kind of resources and teaching and coaching and stuff that we would provide. Whether you're a coach that's a performance coach like me, or whether you're a coach that coaches in leadership, executive, change management, HR, or marketing, or you name it. You are talking to business professionals, and where are they? They're on LinkedIn. That's just one of the biggest platforms out there for it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So leveraging LinkedIn, how are you finding these people? Is it going into groups? Is it just doing searches and then like connecting with them? What's the exact way that you're finding these people?
Everything. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a no-brainer. I think everybody should get it. If you don't have it, you should definitely get it. If you want to know what to do with it, you can contact me or you can contact Chris. It's a game changer in terms of being able to search and filter for your exact target market segmentation persona. And that's one of the things we're always taught at the beginning when we're starting a business. Do you know your target market? Do you have your USP? How do you find that target market person? Well, that data is something you can plug directly into Sales Navigator and start researching the individuals that fit that description. Now you can start to look at them, look at their profiles, and start to get to know the lives they have. What do they do? Where do they do it? What kind of things are they posting on LinkedIn? One of the things I love about LinkedIn Sales Navigator is you can say who's been active lately and posting and commenting on LinkedIn, and then you can go see what those posts and comments are so that you can see, does that person resonate with where you are, or would you resonate with them?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So leveraging the power of LinkedIn Sales Navigator, LinkedIn as a whole, going out, reaching out to them, everything. Now, once you've got connected or anything, what does that process look like to take them from just a person that you texted on LinkedIn to actually becoming a sale in your world?
Well, I mean, it's usually a registration on an onboarding process. I have a survey and a questionnaire. One of the things I have is a fear archetype quiz. It's fun, but it also does give me some insights into where they are. The life cycle quadrant measuring, which basically says like where is the most pain and difficulty in the quadrants of your life right now, which gives me a little bit of insight as to what's the biggest thing facing them at the moment. And then the onboarding questions specifically about their preparedness and readiness for commitment to change and address this, their availability, their time, all those different things are very telling about where a person is in their life, which could also be the reason why they're struggling, because sometimes it points to the very problem that they have. And I'm like, you have no time, sir. Like, I don't know how you're going to work with me. This is your problem. You have no time for life. And sometimes it's just that simple, and helping them see it really perspective is one of the most game changing things when you can put on those lenses of another person for just a moment and go, oh,
I agree. So I know that we talked a little bit in the beginning, so we don't have as much time, but to kind of recap everything that we've talked about, right? From you making the pivot and seeing people get results to then leveraging the power of LinkedIn and doing all of these things so that we can generate leads to then have that. And then the sales conversation of just being very authentic of let me get to know you. Let me get to understand you where you're at now, really identify the problem and then simply present a solution. Knowing all of these different things, and as we begin to go ahead and wrap up, if you were to talk to Michael as you got into this old version of you, what would you recommend? What's one piece of advice that you would give old you?
Ooh. I think I would have said, set some of that money aside for support. Instead of taking it all on yourself and spending longer with more money over time to try to complete those things, especially the automated technical stuff, up front, paying someone to set it up for you now and taking that hit now would have saved me hundreds and hundreds of hours. And when you think about my value over time, compared to what I spent, I would have said that would have been massive. A piece of information to have.
For sure. Understood.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, it was great to have you on the podcast. I know we got all excited, started talking everything before, and then this. I mean, we could talk for hours. So I'm sure we'll connect again. But thanks for being a guest, and we'll talk very soon.
Thanks, Chris. I'll see you later.
Absolutely. Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Awesome. Well, everyone, I hope that you were able to get as much value as I did out of this episode with Michael. Yeah, a little bit more shortened and condensed version, but you could really see a couple really important pillars that you can really use to build your coaching business on. The three things that really stood out to me. Number one is leveraging LinkedIn, especially if you're a coach and you're going after a more professional audience. LinkedIn is massive. Everyone's there. LinkedIn Sales Navigator makes it so easy. You can say, okay, I want this person in this location and this, and you could just start having conversations. That's point number one. It leads into point number two of what Michael said is just have conversations. Don't get me wrong. Are there this marketing tactic and this and this and this that you can employ that would help you? Absolutely. But people overcomplicate it. All that you need to do is you need to figure out who's your ideal client. Go talk to them. And that's exactly what Michael talked about, just having conversations. And then we obviously talk about LinkedIn as a medium to go ahead and do that. And I think that's the real powerful thing, because sometimes we can overcomplicate in our head, feel like we need to do this or that and whatever, when really we just need to focus on the first thing, right? I call it the linchpin method of focusing on that most important thing. And that's having conversations, because the conversations are going to lead to sales in the end and you ultimately having more clients and helping people. So that's number two important thing that I felt Michael shared. And the third one is the very last thing that he said, coaches. Ultimately for me, in the beginning, I was hesitant. I was scared to go ahead and spend money. Then I came to the realization, just as Michael had too, if I pay someone this amount of money, but they can expedite my process, no one's going to save me a lot of time, headache, and annoying. But then part two is that it allows me to get to the result much faster, allows me to make more money. So yeah, I might spend $3, $5, $10, $20, $50, $100,000 with a coach. If they can get me there faster, why wouldn't I? And so those are the three things that really stood out to me from what Michael shared in this shortened podcast episode. If you did enjoy this as well, please make sure to go ahead and drop a like. Michael, I'm actually going to go ahead and take you back because I realized I didn't ask you a very important question. Anybody who resonated with you that wants to either get your services or just connect with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
I think on LinkedIn is a great way. It's, Michael Devous Jr., on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And then everything, all the resources and all the connections to my sites and stuff would be through there as well.
Okay. Amazing. If you guys like this video, make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe. And if you'd also like to watch another episode to see how you can continue to grow your coaching business, go ahead and click right here.